Guys, you guys want to say hi to YouTube? Hi, YouTube. I hope you're doing well. Hey, today we are reading a manga chapter, a special manga chapter 16.5. Really loud in my ears. Paul asked Philip for a job. I know, it's like, why okay, champ? But guys, I'm so excited to go and get through this, especially since the new season has been announced. The new trailer has been completely out. Guys, these chapters, all these special chapters that we've been reading have been a huge thanks, I can't say this enough, to Zictor. Incredible individual, incredible moderator, guys. In case you guys haven't checked out, go check out Six Face World. Incredible individuals, incredible community, literally really supportive, really amazing. I think the whole team there so far has been nothing but love and support and pretty much helping out. And Zictor has been on top of it. He's my primo dude, just a straight up like brother from another mother, helping out, making sure that all the like, you know, the chapters are organized and are thrown out there for us to read and analyze, and for you guys to be able to go ahead and enjoy. I do want to throw out, guys, when this comes out, because this might come out earlier than expected, and just as a reminder, we will be doing episode per episode of the new season of Mushoku Tensei when it comes out, along with the appropriate chapters that go along with it. So we will be analyzing the episode, analyzing to the episode, and then analyzing the novel parts as well. So if you guys are interested in that whole journey, come on over and join us on Twitch. It's completely free. I don't have a Patreon or anything like that. And then eventually it'll make its way up to YouTube as well. With that being said, why don't we go and just jump into it, guys? What do we think? All right. I think I've done it big screen before. Okay, special manga chapter 16.5. Reunion with an acquaintance. Paul asks Philip for a job. It's interesting how people change over time, Philip thought to himself. His daughter Eris had grown so much in the past 10 years. Philip thought back to when she was only 2 years old, removed as head of the Boreas' family almost a year before, and he was reduced to serving as a mayor of Roa. Philip's life had become a monochrome blur of tedious majoral tasks, attempts to pacify his neurotic wife, and enduring the daily orders and demands and verbal abuse of his father, Saurus. Philip, who had been yelled at since childhood, was used to the latter of the three. He should have been complacent, but he found himself growing anxious about the lack of opportunities to demonstrate his strength. Time seemed to crawl without any significant improvement or variety. All right, let's break that down. How would it feel? Let's be realistic about it. For you personally, how would it feel to be reduced from being the head of something to being reduced to just a side piece? You know, a mayor, to being blurred into the monotonous thing that is life, right? To try and appease, you know, family member, husband, wife, whatever it may be, that have a lot of expectations of you that you can't necessarily meet because that work-life balance is a little imbalanced at the moment, you know? From taking verbal abuse from your father, constantly being berated. And Philip even states he's been yelled at since childhood. He should have been complacent, but he found himself growing anxious at the lack of opportunities to demonstrate his strength. Oof. I'm reading this, dude, and I'm like, Philip sounds stuck. I'm gonna be straight up about you. The way that this first two paragraphs like are even structured in that way, it's like crawling. You know, it's that crawling motion of time. If we're going to be realistic, time is still crawling around, but are you changing? Are you growing? Do you feel like you're growing as an individual? Dude, wow. JJ Anthony, thanks so much for the follow, man. Appreciate you so much. Guys, knowing his fate makes this even sadder. But this is something that, like, as a therapist, I'm super duper curious about, and I'm not reading ahead. I'm literally staying there. I would ask Philip, and I know I've asked this question in some of the previous episodes, which is, if you were to like conceptualize aspects of your life into different periods, right? Say Philip when he was a child, Philip when he was a teenager, Philip when he was an adult, Philip when he got married, so on and so forth. What version of Philip caused the most destruction or like most miscommunication to the rest of everyone else? And this goes for you as well. What version of you caused the most chaos or miscommunication to the rest of you? Because seeing the way that Philip is now, oh, Prime Lewinsky, dude, thanks so much for the sub, dude, for the Prime sub. You guys, drop some Doritos for him. Clarification: it is a tradition of the Boreas family that all male children from generations are sent to the head of the to the head of the family. So the head of the family is only the father figure they have. It's the only father figure they have. Oof. Well, then let's talk about that, right? Because then all of a sudden, what expectations are you living up to if you are being sent to only one person as the head of the family? Which, let's be honest, it's realistic. You know, in terms of like back in the day, a lot of people would they'd put a lot of emphasis and relational strength into what it means to go ahead and be a leader, be a cult, like, you know, be the leader of your family, be the leader of your like name or whatever. So it makes sense, but at the same time, I'm like, dude, it would hurt. It would hurt to be stuck in a time period where there's like time is going by, but yet you're still stuck in the monotony that is life. He was Philip as well. Was he Sauron's son, or was he sent to Sauron and raised as his own? One day, however, Paul Greyrat, of course Paul, appeared at the door to the mayor's mansion. Philip saw that he was familiar, but something about him completely changed from when he had last seen him nearly 10 years before. When he saw Philip's face in the doorway, Paul bowed his head. I come to you in hopes of finding a stable life. Please, give me some kind of work. Oh, Paul. Dude, I love what's up, next gen gamer? How you doing? I love the balls in Paul, dude. Like Paul just being like, hey dude, I come to you in hopes of a stable life. I'm just gonna be straight up. I'm gonna shoot my shot. You got any work? Philip stared at Paul in surprise. Paul explained that he had fled the Nautos family almost a decade ago and became an adventurer. His travels took him to the Millis continent and then the southern part of the central continent. But along the way, he got a girl on his adventuring party pregnant. The child is my responsibility, he stated. That's why I have returned to the Asura kingdom, where I hope to create a stable life. Wide-eyed, Philip stared at the girl standing next to Paul. She was beautiful, with the facial contours seen in the Millis aristocrats. Philip was silent and thoughtful as the girl cradled her swollen belly before him. Philip was one of the only three who had demonstrated any potential to succeed Saurus. The third brother was sent to marry into Sephiroth, as the competition was only between Philip and James. Philip lost his sons were taken away from him, and at that point, which pissed off Hilda. That sucks, dude. I'm gonna be straight up. Like having your children taken away from you in that regard. Talk about trauma, dude. That is a very big trauma. If you can't even like be around your own kids. Okay. For Paul to do this and be very open and honest, for me, this is actually showing the fact that Paul is willing to do anything to take responsibility at this point in time. You know, I think this is huge in that regard. The fact that Paul really has been stepping up, you know, during this pregnancy. Paul stepped up and was like, hey, you know what, this is my kid. I gotta go bow my head. I gotta go find stable life. I gotta go ahead and be some kind of a man that like can like bring stability. That is something, dude. And that for me allures to the fact that like maybe there was senses of guilt there. Maybe there was senses of like, holy shit, okay, I just stated that I was gonna take Zenith's comment of like, you know, accepting her conditions quickly, but at the same time came with this, you know, when you do the do and kid pops up, you know, you got to be careful in scenarios like that. But him taking responsibility and him going forward and even showing his eyes or showing his face and bowing and doing what needs to be done, that's big, dude. Wide-eyed, Philip stared at the girl standing next to Paul. She was beautiful, with the facial contours seen in the Millis aristocrats. Philip was silent and thoughtful as the girl cradled to the swollen belly before him. The Asura kingdom was renowned as a desirable place for prospective parents to settle down. Paul was originally from the kingdom, but instead of returning to the Nautos family, he had chosen to ask for the help of the Boreas by seeking aid from his old friend Philip. I'm begging you. There's no one else I can ask. Much to Philip's bewilderment, Paul took to his knee and bowed his head. This was the greeting used by villagers and craftsmen, not the greeting of Asura nobility. Philip regarded Paul in scornful horror. Kneeling before him was Paul Nato's Grey Rat, the oldest son of Nato's Grey Rat, the intended head of the family. As soon as he had fled, he had been disinherited and was no longer considered a member of nobility. To Philip, Paul was no better than trash. Philip summoned his butler, Thomas, escort him. But before he was able to throw the two of them out loud, a loud BAM reverberated throughout the room and the door crashed open. Saurus stormed into the sitting room and glanced down at the kneeling Paul. Oof, bro. Oh. The fact that Philip, well, let's be real, titles mean a lot to people, right? Titles mean a lot to people, but I think the juxtaposition here from Saurus to Philip. Saurus is loud and blah 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 blah, and Philip is just going through monotony of life, and Paul comes in and interrupts that monotony and that like disposition or thoughts that he may have had of him. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, you know, what are we about to get here? But also, what is Philip's ideals of him, and do they change after he gets this job? That's huge. If it isn't Paul, Lord Saurus, it's been a long time. You've grown so big, but it seems you still haven't learned how to greet people. Is that a greeting worthy of an Asura nobleman? Paul closed his eyes in shame. I no longer have any claim to Asura nobility. The tips of Saurus's mustache seemed to have taken a life of their own, as if they were channeling electricity generated by his rage. You fool! If you truly had no relation to Asura nobility, then I would have not allowed you to have set foot in this mansion. Paul tried to hide his shock and remained on his knee while his head bowed. Well, I understand that this is a bit absurd. You got that from your father. At the mention of his estranged father, Paul cringed. Saurus unleashed a ranting recollection, shouting, "That man hated faulty logic, but he was far too strict. Nearly 15 years ago, when we were drinking together at his mansion, I recall he was trying to divide the contents of our bottle equally. While I informed him that I didn't like the wine and didn't want to drink it anyway, he replied he also thought it was bad, and therefore we should split it. Once he opened the bottle, I couldn't be so rude, so in the middle of Saurus's chaotic outburst, Philip memories brought him back to an incident nearly 15 years ago, before he was old enough to attend school." Whoa, let's take that back in, bro. Let's take that back in. Dude, Gramps is a character. I love Gramps. Like, Saurus is a character altogether, but just the fact that he's willing to go ahead and like overstep that boundary and say something, you know, and overstep and say, hey, you know what, dude, I know your dad. Like, I have memories with your dad, good or bad, you know, and just the concept, I don't like it anyway, so we'll split it equally. But just the fact that like he's coming through, and you can tell that like Paul still cringes and he still has like triggers at the mention of his father. It's showing a lot of the recollection, the fondness, and the moments of introspection here. Because anybody else, you know, you would take into thought. Okay, I'm trying to think like Saurus for a second. This man comes from nobility. He's no longer noble, but says that he's been adventuring. He knows his way around, right? I think a well-experienced man that actually knows how to report or knows the noble traditions or how to talk would make good as a way of like being able to go ahead and like keep control of something. I think this is awesome. I think this is legit awesome. The fact that we see Saurus just making connection, laughing, being like, you know, I've never thought, you know how to bow. Saurus is a character in of himself, man. I love Saurus. Okay. In the middle of Saurus's chaotic outburst, Philip's memories brought him to an incident. Oh yeah, we just read that. But he was old enough to attend school. One day, Saurus was traveling to the Milbots region, which is part of the Nautilus territory. He had brought Philip along with him on his first long journey, his first excursion beyond the Fateau region. He remembered the thrill of seeing the great mines and the windmills in the Milbots region. He was still excited when they arrived in the Nautilus estate. Around midday, Soros and the head of the Notice family took to drinking wine, and Philip couldn't wait to explore. The estate was around the same size as his home, and as soon as he was able to escape Soros's watchful gaze, Philip slipped away to investigate. Normally, Philip was a well-behaved child, and he usually fought his boredom by asking a servant to bring him some toys or sweets. This time, emboldened by his curiosity, Philip set out on his fierce solo adventure. However, as he explored, he realized that the Nautilus estate was not nearly as interesting a building as the Boreas mansion. It had similar rooms that lined up in similar ways, and everything started to look the same. He wished he was tall enough to see out the windows. Finally, he saw a door at the end of a long hallway, but he decided it wasn't worth checking out. He soon grew tired of searching for entertainment, and suddenly thought of his father's angry face. If the short-tempered man found out that Philip had gone off on his own, he would probably drop his clenched fist on Philip's head. The young boy decided that he had to get back right away. I mean, what's up, Silver Knight? How you doing? I hope you're doing well. Being a kid, right? Being a kid and having expectations being placed on you, I think that's a big moment. That's a big aspect or a big conversational thing in any family tradition, any family, I guess, mention in a situation like this. It's a classic kid moment, but also aside from that, I think it really shows sort of like the relationship between Philip and Saris. However, by the time he reached his conclusion, it was already too late. Philip was lost. He had no idea which room he had come from, nor what route he had taken. He had recalled that the Nautilus estate had been constructed to combat invaders with repetitive halls and no visible markers. Philip searched his memory for the way back, but he found himself becoming more and more confused. Before long, he couldn't remember which floor he had started on. Disheartened, he roamed the estate forlornly, occasionally calling out, "Father, where are you? Is anyone here?" He desperately wished that someone would appear to show him the way, but no one came, no matter how much he called out. It turned out that the servants were all eating lunch, and Philip had ended up in a rarely used part of the estate. He had only been lost about 10 minutes, but to Philip, it felt like hours. In his despair, Philip sank to the floor at the dead end and began to cry. He cried and cried, but no one came. He began to worry that he might starve to death in a maze-like building. Just as he realized this, he was hungry. Something cast a shadow from behind them. He heard a voice. "Hi!" Still crying, Philip twisted around to look up at the owner of the shadow. It was a young boy with light brown hair, probably around Philip's age, maybe a bit older. He was well dressed, but there was still mud on the cuff of his pants, and his shirt collar was slightly torn. He gave Philip a concerned look. "Why are you crying?" "I was exploring and got lost, and my father, I don't know where he is." "Oh, okay then. Follow me." He gestured back down the hall with his chin. Sure. Philip wiped the tears from his eyes and stared after the boy. This was Philip's first meeting with Paul, not a stray rat. Dude, adorable. Just the fact that I can imagine, and I think that this is a really well done job of the author, because you get this distinction between both of them. You know, one of them being dressed to the nines, nobility, all of these things, and then you have, you know, Paul, a little dirty but gets the job done. A little dirty but gets the, like, he knows his way around. Imagine that, but at night with only moonlight and creaking sounds. It'd be terrifying. Yeah, it would be absolutely terrifying. Mr. Somewhat Clean. But I think what's awesome about this, though, is also the representation of, you know, Philip being lost and sort of Paul helping him find his way. That's big. I mean, as your first memories, were you guys kids that like lost your way around or would get locked in places and not know how to get out? How were you guys like? Because I remember as a kid, my brothers would always like, you know, I would always get lost and my brothers would be like, "Oh, well, there you are." Or I'd always like somehow lock a door and not know how to open it for some reason. Like I would crack it open and then like another way, but yeah, whatever. After that, Philip thought that the boy would take him to his father's, but he ended up accompanying him outside to play. When he returned in the evening, covered with mud, Saurus gave him a scolding, but that's another story. Paul, I'm not going to take you to your dad. We're going to go play. Philip and Paul's meeting was nothing short of destiny. Following their first encounter, Stars traveled to the Millboats region many times, and each time Philip tagged along to play with Paul. When Philip was 7, he began attending the school for nobility in the capital, and Paul was there too. Philip and Paul got along surprisingly well, and they considered each other soulmates. Hey, yo. Though Paul lacked book smarts, Philip lacked physical strength. They worked on their opposing weaknesses together while causing all sorts of troubles. With Paul by his side, Philip was game for any mischief Paul might suggest, and they would execute devious plans without a care. They were best friends. Adorable. Adorable. The fact that they came together and they knew one another had like weaknesses that they wanted to go and overcome and do, and all of that. Adorable. Adorable. Do you guys prefer it like this, or do you guys prefer it like big screen like this? Oh, hold on. This or this? What do you guys prefer? For future novel readings. When Philip was 7. Oh. Book smarts or physical strength. Second one. Okay, that way you can read the text too. Okay, beautiful. But they were. Hold on. Let me read that. When Philip was 7, he began attending school for nobility in the capital, and Paul was there too. Philip and Paul got along surprisingly well, and they considered each other soulmates, even though Paul lacked book smarts. Philip lacked care, physical strength. Oh, lacked physical strength. They worked on their opposing weaknesses together while causing all sorts of trouble. I wonder why this sudden shift came through. You know, I wonder if the sudden shift, like, or not sudden shift, but the like scornful look came because of, you know, aside from Paul being disowned, the distortion, the image that he may have had of Paul when Paul came in and bowed and kneeled and everything was not the image that he thought of a reunion would look like. But at some point, Philip changed. As he grew up, he began to form relationships based solely on what he might gain from others. Oh, and he wasn't sure how the change occurred. Maybe it happened when he heard that Paul, who graduated from school and returned home, got into a fight with his father and ran away. It might have been when he and his older brother James found themselves in a competition for head of the Boreas' family. Regardless, before he realized what was happening within him, Philip found that he tended to appraise and judge others based on their potential utility. Fuck! Ugh! Yeah, they became totally different people. They became totally different people, and if we're going to be realistic, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that for a second. Change happens. Hate to put it this way, but our friends, people that we interact with, people that we're best friends with or whatever, we change along with them. You know, the aspects of change and what we try and hold on to aren't necessarily always going to be there, right? So as we start growing and evolving and advancing, so do they. And oftentimes, like, life, trauma, everything starts changing who they were. Like, how many of you, if you guys are in college or work life or older, are still really, really great friends with the individuals that you were friends with in high school? Oh, oh, oh. It's a hard question because, like, that's sort of the big aspects of change is, you know, the experiences that we make, the people that we make, and the environment that we're in. Yeah, great friends, not so much. Exactly, Winter. The environment that we're in. If Paul or Philip is surrounded by Saurus and all of these people nailing in sort of their expectations and rules and all of these things, Philip is going to start adjusting to the environment that he's in, and he's to start making friends based on that environment for survival. I lost all my high school friends, but I still have my grade school friends. There you go. That's cool, TLC. Heck yeah. But compared to like the vast majority of people who have like a lot of like, they're like, oh yeah, we're friends in high school, and when you're in high school, you have a lot of friends and whatnot. So you start to get older, life changes, everything. You know, you start to focus on your family, individuality, whatever that may be, and change causes you guys to sort of start splitting. And I think that's a big aspect there. I think this is huge in terms of like how that like meeting could have looked like, of seeing each other and seeing how different they are from one another. Like, man, dude, man, that's you want to talk about pain? You want to talk about pain, bro? Whew. Oof. All right, back to it. Philip snapped out of his reverie and looked down at Paul, whose head was still bowed before him. His name had long been removed from the ranks of the Asura nobility. Philip had thought he would never see Paul again, but here he was, chin lowered before him, pride swallowed for the sake of his unborn child. Philip observed his old friend. To him, the man who knelt before him appeared to have changed little from when they first met. Philip turned to his butler, Thomas. The resident knight of Buena Village recently died during an encounter with the monster, did he not? Paul is proficient with the sword. Let's leave it to him. Damn. 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 Okay, Zictor's note. In chapter 5.5, Sophie's father says that he was the only person working the reduced number of monsters to reduce the numbers of monsters in the area. Since he also says he had been living in the village since its foundation, it's unlikely that he simply forgot about the other night. What I find more likely is the author hadn't yet thought of the night when writing chapter 5.5 and they decided to hire him to help motivate Philip in hiring Paul. They lost the night and they would need a replacement anyway. This chapter, hold on, hiring Paul portrays Philip as someone who got a little bit lost in the struggle of power against James. Yeah, no. It can be solved by, since the previous night died, a Buena Village or nothing, so you could say Paul pay a wage below his actual value and silence the annoying villagers. Yeah, well, I mean, realistically, there are two different aspects here, right? Security. No, I mean, first off, before that, you brought up an excellent point, Victor. In a battle for power, what do you usually lose? A lot of yourself. In a battle, in aspects of revenge, or, you know, when you're so lost in the monotonous, or like you're still grieving like a major loss, either of position, rank, power, loved one, or whatever, you lose aspects of yourself. You can lose aspects of yourself. I think in a situation like this, you know, even if it's just to silence the villagers, or even if it's just to have a card at play, because I'm trying to think like Philip. If I wanted a card at play while also trying to maintain the idea of what once was and appease that as well and not piss off Saurus, this is the key move. This is like the key move to do. There's a village far away. They need monsters to reduce the area. Had a knight. He died. Whether real or not, it's a strategy move done by Philip. Absolutely. And it's a strategy move to appease everyone, right? Because at the same time, now he has control over Paul as well. Because now Paul's indebted to him. Which puts even more pressure, you know, with the whole recommendation of Paul sending Rudy up to him and the family falling in love with Rudy and everything. But my main question, my main concern in all of this is, if Philip is doing this with this train of thought, his communication with Paul from that point on, was it short and direct, or do you think that there was some sort of semblance of trying to like return his identity? Oh man, oh man. Paul's eyes snapped up in surprise. Philip, your social status will be that of a low-grade noble. You will be living in a remote village that doesn't even have a market of its own. But that will do, won't it? Of course, I'm in your debt. A smile full of joy spread across his face, and Paul bowed his head in gratitude. Oof. Oof. That's what I'm thinking, dude. That's exactly what I thought. Philip would totally do that, dude. Philip would totally do this as a way of keeping control. Appeasing everyone and keeping control. Now you have Paul at your disposal, right? If he didn't give the job to Paul, there would have been no teacher for Eris, and she would have been butchered her birthday. Yeah. But like let's not shoot long term. Let's think in the here and now. What does this mean for you in a position of power for Philip to do this? Appease, control. Oh look, I attend to the needs of a lonely village out there to Buena Village. You know, I'm sending the knight, even if the other knight was completely fake or whatever, right? Or there's semblances of like that the knight was real and someone died. It's like I'm appeasing all parties. I'm appeasing Saurus. I'm appeasing everyone. So the problem no longer lays with me. Now I'm in good light to everyone's eyes. It's a power move. It's a very like manipulative but power moves that someone can do to still like maintain order, but But by the way, manipulation in every sense isn't a bad thing, you know. But in this sense, to go ahead and like keep even the semblance of an idea of what friendship was still there, in control, still there. Interesting. Interesting, interesting, interesting. 8 years from that day, Philip still didn't understand why he had made that choice. He was so accustomed to judging others for their usefulness to him that he wondered why his memories of the past caused him to take pity on such a useless man. But as he watched his little girl's 10th birthday party draw to a conclusion, he thought to himself, Paul really did change. Hi, Penchekin, ¿cómo estás? Hola, que estés bien. I like how 8 years. It's like Paul, Philip, 8 years to be like, wait a minute, did I do that just because because he was a friend? Why did I do that? Fair. Actually, sometimes we unconsciously make decisions and then we come to realize why later. Several months before, when he realized that Eris couldn't even execute even the most basic dance steps, he thought that her 10th birthday party would be painful and humiliating for her. But on this day, she was able to do all of the steps with ease and swept across the dance floor with relative grace. For a 10-year-old, there was still some awkwardness, but Philip could see that she truly looked happy while she was dancing. Oh, dude. Dude. A line of worry crossed his brow as he realized that Eris would mature into a lovely woman within the next few years. His eyes fell upon the boy standing next to Eris, Paul's son, Rudius. It was Rudius's influence that had brought about this change in his daughter. Paul had changed because of Rudius too, Philip noted. The neighborhood bully had become a father. Philip realized that from the moment he gave Paul work, he had changed a little too. Although it was indirect, Rudius had something to do with his own evolution as well. Philip mused on the past few years as he watched Rudius lead Eris and Ghislaine from the room. Bro, the concept of change from individuals, huge. But also, if I was Philip, hold on, and I'm in this situation, I can kind of see why Philip would push the ideology onto Rudy. Hey, you want to be with my daughter? Hey, you want to be with my daughter? I give you, permission. You can be with my daughter. You think about it, dude. In a world where nobility, as we know in this world, nobility can do really, really fucked up things. And I think throughout time, nobility would do a lot of messed up things, especially to underaged individuals, if we're going to put it this way, right? Would you not want your daughter, who has been changing for the better, for the for good or whatever, to be with someone around her age? I like how the gradual changes are. Yeah, exactly. No, Sag, exactly. It's just like small changes that take over a period of time to start growing. Of course, the whole tying up thing, I think that's something else. I'm not even going to get into that, but the whole concept of for example, would you rather be with someone your age, chat, or would you rather be with much considerably older people who are like oh yes who would you rather be with in a situation like this if the social and cultural elements are led in this regard? And if you're oof, man, talk about a lot to weigh in as a parent in this whole universe. During the party, Rudius had some food brought into his room. Maybe it was another way to win Eris's favor. He was a wonderful teacher with a promising future. And despite his tenacity and patience, Philip found himself intrigued by Rudius's frequent use of trickery to achieve his goals. Without his realizing, an evil grin spread across his face. If Rudius continued to develop at that rate and he was able to manage his once unruly daughter, he had potential as a future political tool. Dude, I can imagine just Philip just thinking, wait a minute, this can work wonders. Hold on. Philip stopped himself. Before Rudius came to him, he would have hesitated to groom him for use in his own quest for influence. Oh. Philip realized how absurd his ideas were. He lost himself in thought. If Rudius became head of the Nautilus family, and he made Eris the head of the Boreas family, he would once again be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Paul. they could conspire like they used to, and as a bonus, they might be even able to drink and laugh in each other's company again. He considered this possibility. This seems more interesting than becoming the head myself. Realizing the potential for these ideas, Philip chuckled quietly, began plotting for the future. Yeah, I see that, dude. I can totally fucking see that. Holy crap, dude. Holy bananas. His whole idea is like, all right, I mean, let's be real. The future for my daughter can be at play here, and the future for the families can be at play here. And what a wonderful opportunity to go ahead and like, and then everyone got shuffled. Yeah, to go ahead and like start doing things, right? To start moving pieces into play. If the displacement issue like incident didn't happen, do you guys genuinely think that this would have worked out? To be honest with you, Philip believed in the heart of the cards and top deck Druidius. I know, I know. What could have been between Philip and Paul? Yeah, they could have been phenomenal drinking buddies. I'm thinking it probably could have, but I also feel like Rudy might have brought Sylphie up along the way. If he played his cards right, it totally would have happened. Oh, did he? Oh shit. Well, I hope. Because I also feel like, in a way, this would be a way for Rudy to live a comfortable life. He would have Eris by his side. He could probably have, I hate to put it this way, he probably could have had like the Sylphie somewhere in there, right? And while praising Roxy all along the way. Would it have been a boring light? I'm not so sure. Rudius wouldn't have his heart into it. Yeah, it would have been Philip 2.0. If we're gonna be realistic about it, Victor, it probably would have been Philip 2.0. You know, where it would have just been a monotonous task. But if he was forced into it, I mean, what other place is there? You know, especially during this time when nobility is sort of forcing a lot of roles onto kids. I can see that he would have take Sylphie, a second wife, as leverage too. Yeah, yeah. I do wonder though, life can't be monotonous with Eris. No, but I'm talking about like the monotony of work, you know, the monotony of like stamping papers or doing something. One thing I'm curious about is with this, what happens way afterwards? Let's throw the story 40, 50 years down the line. Right, displacement incident, everything happens, but now things are starting to return to normal for whatever reason. Do we have a Rudius that is still hell-bent on adventuring? Do we have a Rudius who's gonna go in and try and settle down, or has settled down with family? Or do we have a Rudius who's just an old man sitting in his chair, sort of like recanting the memories of what happened? My brain is like, oh, there's so much potential in, like, you know, the hero's journey and the way that you want to go and like throw this out there, right? You probably played sim games, so you would have tried to optimize his territory. But to be fair, I think that's like, don't get me wrong, I love anime that like would go deep into like, oh, this is the way that we would try and develop the territory and min-max stuff. Also, notice me, senpai, thanks so much for the prime, man. I appreciate it. You're an absolute goat. Let me drop you some Doritos. I think he would have lived his best life. I think he would have gone through, like, you know, if he could, 101 different locations. But I can just see this, like, you know, see him sort of like just dipping in peace type of thing. Man, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what comes. I think that this chapter, just in general, gave us good introspective, a good insight into who Philip is and what his expectations and goals were. Did it turn out this way? No, sadly, no. You know, but was he changed? Did the concept of change happen because of Rudy? I think so. Did Rudy play a big role in, especially in Paul's change at the beginning, causing Philip to change, causing others to change? Yes. And in case you guys are wondering, Ed, is this even realistic psychologically speaking? Like, Ed, are you even sure that this, like, psychologically speaking, that this could even happen? Guys? Absolutely. Absolutely. I bring this up in almost every video I can, every reading I can, or whatnot. Because sociologically and psychologically speaking, if a writer uses this in any form of work that they have, they're already doing a more than phenomenal job. If you're thinking about your character, yourself, or whatever, and how you impact others and others impact you, the development of a child inside of this, it's going to affect the home life. It's going to go and affect the school life. Guess what? Home. We're going to go through this. Rudy being, you know, like the unborn child, right? Rudy already happening here throughout whole Paul, like Zenon's pregnant, all of this thing. What does that affect? Home. Now there's a concept of home. What does that affect? Parents' workplace, parents' friends. Guess what they got to worry about now? The educational system and government, like community and government agency, they now got to worry about. That's going to go ahead and affect Rudy. Guess what's going to affect out of all of this? Time. This presses in and this presses out. So if we're looking at this in terms of, does this make sense? 100% yes. 100% yes. This diagram is called Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory, right? Otherwise known as the sociological imagination, for those of you guys that are in sociology. But in psychology, right, this is Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory, and it's how we impact our environment and our environment impacts us. You want to take it a step further, right? Rudy being born, right? We already went through the home and the parents' workplace and all of this, right? He has a peer group, or home, right? Influences the school. It's influenced by the neighborhood. It influences your peer group, Sophie, all of that. It also influences the local religious organization, right? And does a religious hierarchy actually take impact in Rudy? Guys, genuine question. Does a religious hierarchy impact Rudy? You want, let's flip that. Developing child, right, is at home. His school for Rudy is Roxy. Yeah, that's what I'm about to get. Roxy enables his peer group with Sylphie and with others, in which Roxy is seen as this like saint water, which enables this religiosity of like parataxic distortion of Roxy being formed and turning into a hierarchy of Roxiness, which affects his media portrayal, i.e. him creating statues of Roxy, which he might in the future, I don't fucking know now, start creating like Roxy figurines and putting them up for sale or other stuff like that due to this religious hierarchy, which might start affecting the reason why he starts traveling, right? It's not a parataxic distortion if it's true. The beautiful thing of this concept is you can throw in anything and literally start trailing back. The overall big thing in the macro system is the political system, big trauma, generational trauma that may be happening, whatever, right? Displacement incident happening, the religious hierarchy, which is so on and so forth. You can go up and down in this thing. I hope that this makes sense, using this as an explanation as to why Rudy is a big agent of change for others. He has been distributing figurines of Rudy to clear his name. But I mean, think about it this way. It's not just that. It's also the concept of bringing media into this thing, right? Because people would freak out like, oh, how'd you draw this? It's so well, whatever. If he keeps creating these figurines and dropping them onto people, right? You can create a whole fucking network for it. And guess what? Start a cultural change. Because once you're here, once you're in the exosystem, you can start impacting outside systems as well. And the outside system starts impacting it as well. I have no doubt that if he wanted to, he could make a lot of fucking money doing shit like this, dude. And this is just off of this political, like, you know, this theory. Does that make sense? I hope it does, guys. Drop me some Doritos if it makes sense. Drop me a moon if it doesn't make sense. That's probably the best way I can do it. Because if it doesn't make sense, I'll try and explain it a little bit clearer. So that way you guys can, like, sort of, like, start doing this on yourself. It doesn't make sense? Oh, okay. I was like, damn, masters. For me, it's like looking at this, right? Benjike, surprise. Looking at this, I'm like, if you guys ever hear anybody be like, oh, he just like pre-read whatever. No, dude. If any of my predictions ever come true for any fucking show, and you guys are wondering how does he do that? It's this graph. It's this graph. I'm running this I'm running as a therapist, a good fucking therapist, and not just someone that talks in metaphors and will, like, you know, whatever. A good therapist is running this in their mind 24/7 during a counseling session, up and down, along with Maslow, along with all the other things, right? Because we're trying to see how you're going to be impacted by different forms of trauma going forward, and how you can go ahead and like change with different interventions. How does this relate to the tarot card theory? Wait, what tarot card theory? But overall, that's what I'm getting at. I think that this is really, really impactful. I think that the writing in this is absolutely phenomenal. It enables a really realistic form of impact in the way that Rudius has impacted others, and the way that, as a good oracle, you mean? Oh, I wish I was a good oracle. But in a situation like this, that's sort of what I'm getting at. Everyone influences one another. And honestly, I think that this is a way of doing anything. But no, straight up, guys, if you see any other therapists, psychologists, whatnot, they're not bringing up theories. They're not bringing up cycles of power and control the way that we do. I'm sorry, but that's a red flag. I'm just going to be straight up with y'all. There has to be at least some sort of evidence or something that you guys can attune to and start to learn as to why things start happening. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Kohlberg, whatever may be out there, instead of just talking in metaphors. I think that that's absolutely huge. But with this, dude, I love chapters like this. I love reading chapters like this because I think it's important. I think it's huge. I think concepts during therapy. Yeah, I go through these concepts during therapy. If there's like, if I feel as though it would be beneficial for the person to know why they may be acting a certain way or why things may be changing and they don't fully grasp the situation as to why, I go over concepts like this, you know, and bring up the whole, like, you know, the theory, why this may be working. It's a psychoeducational perspective. It's a psychoeducational approach to them learning more about themselves. I love it, dude. Chapters like these really give us more of an insight into these characters. Who is Phillip? How did he start to change? How was Paul changed from the pregnancy? And what does this mean going forward? You know, and even like the fact that Saurus, right, has like what aspects of change came from that. Mashiro, I appreciate you so much, man. Have a good night. Be safe. I appreciate you a lot, man. With all of that, guys, did you guys learn anything from this chapter reading? I hope you guys did. Or was there anything that you guys were like, wait, dude, you should totally read this chapter? Let me know down in the comments down below. If you guys like this, we do this every so often. So hit that like button, subscribe, let me know, guys, and come join us over here on Twitch, because we're going to be going a little hard.